we're not residential. Columbus State isn't residential, so we don't have that issue. But a lot of our challenges are around students not having technology at home. So they don't have internet, or they don't have enough computers for the number of people in their homes, with kids being at home too. So that's been a pretty big challenge for us.
Yeah.
I read in the Chronicle email this morning that Ohio State has apparently bought every face mask in the Midwest.
Oh, does that mean that OSU students will be wearing the Miami face masks if they bought them all?
There you go.
That's cool.
So how has technology been for everybody else throughout all of this? I mean, has that IT come through, or are you guys finding, tips to get things working?
So at Clark State, they hooked me up. They actually brought a computer to my house, like literally like drove it to me, and then offered to wire an office phone for me at home. And I said that was unnecessary because I don't need, people can call my cell phone. I'm not forward facing with students, but yeah, they wired a lot of the employees with their home office, which was really kind of outstanding for some of us.
Did anyone see the announcement from Capital University? They had their new student orientation, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and they got Zoom bombed. Somebody came in and started making really racist remarks and put some stuff up there. Like, that's always my fear. Like Miami, like we have WebEx, but we also just purchased Zoom as well. Just trying to allow more flexibility for our faculty and users. So I was always thinking like, oh, AR, we'll never get Zoom bombed or anything. Like, who's gonna want to come into our group and do that? But they did it at Capital. I don't know if anybody's here from there.
I haven't heard of that. Yeah, I also had the same fear. People were telling us about like these things with Zoom, and I mean, I can't imagine that they'd want to get into one of our groups. But anyway, it's just I might use it just with my small group or something. But we also have Teams meetings that seems to work a little better. We've had issues with WebEx. It's just not working. And we have drop-in calls. So we do have issues when we're trying to do meetings with large groups. So, but Teams seems to work a little better, but not everybody knows how to use it. It's just not as easy to use than I think Zoom. So we're trying different things.
Yeah, it was. We're using Zoom, and actually it's been working really well. But everybody's encouraged to really use the password, for the login, just to avoid some of the Zoom bombing. So.
Yeah, we just last month we partially switched to Office 365 and MS Teams, and we still have some other tools. So we've been using something called PEXIP, which I'm guessing is not very popular, but I'm on an Air Force base, so it's secure. And I will say just little things like on MS Teams, when you're doing meetings, it's really easy to get people into a meeting. And little things like the camera is just like the vision is much better on MS Teams than some of the other tools that we use, like even compared to Zoom, because we're allowed to use that for non-confidential stuff. The MS Teams is a lot cleaner looking. I really like it personally.
Well, Andrea, are you trying to stay anonymous since you're Jane Doe?
Why am I Jane Doe again? Oh, I think because I had to go in through the browser because I'm not allowed to download, and I'm actually on my work computer, which sometimes I can't do any of these on my work computer. But I was able to at least access via the browser, but I didn't see where it even gave me an option to put a name in. Let me go see if I can fix that. I'm going to mute myself and change my name.
I was literally just asking her the same thing in a message.
I work for Feds now. You can't know who I am.
Well, I accidentally made that mistake. I went on to the ODHE had like a data kind of webinar the other day. And when I signed in, I just put in Miami University, not thinking anything of it. And there was like 100 people on the web call, and I got called out. And somebody was like, "Who's this Miami University person?" I was like, "I'm so sorry, it's me."
That webinar was actually using Teams, and I actually really like Teams. I had never used it before. So, yeah.
I can tell you a funny story about being incognito, which is we had a freshman reporter at the college last year that wanted to look into our faculty and staff numbers, etc. And his first question was, why did the university have so many top secret staff? Because we have classified employees.
I should laugh.
There's a reason for data dictionaries.
Well, apparently I can try and claim the host role, but I can't rename myself.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm Jane Doe.
So, as far as technology and Teams, I'm trying to get used to using Teams as well, but also just for they call them channels. So they use it to store data and for shared folders here at Lakeland. And so it's sort of different because we were using OneDrive, but this is sort of OneDrive on steroids or something. I don't know. Does anybody else use it? Because you know, I'm having trouble figuring out how to save into that directly from a file. Say.
So Ohio University does, and so there are several things that Microsoft is trying to merge together, and so far they are merged imperfectly. So Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint are all working toward becoming the same thing. So you should have like, you can access, I don't like using files within Teams. It is kind of hard to find them, even though there's a tab there and you can upload them to the channel, but you should have some kind of OneDrive address. And when you when you go in directly into OneDrive, you can find the folders that are in Teams, or because it gives you 3 different, like a document library and then a Teams document library, and then I forget what the third one is. So it is kind of hard to navigate. And then in SharePoint, you need to make sure you're following the folder, otherwise it can be really hard to find again.
Okay, thank you very much, Lou. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's getting better, but it's still kind of a mess.
Ooh, that's concerning because so when we switched to Office 365 last month, we did a partial migration. So it's going to take a full year before we move everything over there because they've got to deal with all the DoD restrictions. But one of the things they're planning to do is all of our files and all of our servers apparently are getting moved to this OneDrive. So a little worrying if it's not user friendly to be able to access them.
I still miss Box, frankly. It is getting better, but it has some weird permissions for folders. Like if you set up a OneDrive, you can't restrict a folder that is a subfolder. If you have access to the main folder, you have access to everything, even though it'll make you think that you've restricted it to that. Anyway, it's interesting.
So watch the restrictions. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you're using a file that you've shared and someone else goes into it, sometimes you get, and this is in OneDrive, not Teams. You can't always save it back. I don't know. I never quite figured out why. Sometimes it says you can't save your changes.
Yeah, I would say too, the thing that you open it in the desktop apps, because especially with like Excel, it's terrible in the web app.
Yes, that's true. But that's when I think I'm having a problem because I've downloaded it and then somebody goes in and changes it, and I don't know, it just hasn't been, that's not the best. So maybe Teams will be better that way. I don't know. I haven't tried changing something in Teams while someone else is in there.
We also had the same similar issue at UToledo. I think we went to 365 about a year and a half ago. And first of all, I took everything from my drive that we had like a storage, and I just put it into a backup folder and moved everything to the shared area myself, just in case IT didn't move it, which they didn't. So I just make sure you do that on your own, just for safety, so that you have a backup automatically on OneDrive. It's not organized, but I can worry about it later. And the other thing is like the Excel files too. We've been trying to share files and they download, and then other people are updating things and we can't load it back up. It makes a separate copy. So we've had a lot of issues with that. And especially I think that if you're doing remote and you're not connected directly, it can sort of, you have to save it. You can't sort of automatically save to the shared, if you're not on the network. So there's really problems with it, we found too. So it's not just you guys. We've had.
Yeah. I've had, because I'm home, I've had issues with, probably my internet's not as strong, as good. And so when I'm working with big files, it gets to be problematic. Yeah, has that been, but I'm impressed, Kelly, by you having your own computer, because I really, really want 2 screens. I mean, I can't live without 2 screens. And I haven't been able to figure out how to connect my laptop with my screen at home, other than with OneDrive. So two OneDrive, files up. Is anybody, what are other people doing?
Hey, Marilyn, this is Joe. I had an old television.
Yeah. I did the same thing.
I put in with an HDMI and I'm working on the laptop. And then my partner is on the next desk and she has her 2 monitors also set up. So you get an HDMI or a cord to adapt, and you should have the same plug-in on the side of whatever monitor you want to use.
Did everybody just not bring home all of their office equipment? We brought home everything. Like I told my people, get whatever you need to be efficient and effective because we're not coming back until next summer.
Yeah,
so I have my standing desk and my double monitors and my office chair and everything.
So I have a question about that because I understand that perhaps some schools, but more in the private sector, they are giving people stipends for working at home, for example, for being able to buy things like a locking filing cabinet, which can be expensive. But when you work with student IDs or SSNs or other sensitive information, you want to be able to lock that away. But that doesn't exist for us. And so if, when the time comes, it's not if, but when I have to print something out and use it, I'm going to have to be able to store that. And I'd like to be able to lock it up in addition to being locked up in my home. And I'm wondering if anyone else has a program like that or how you're handling that.
No, we don't have anything like that. We have had some employees try to push back because we did have employees that didn't have internet service at their house, and didn't want it. And so, how is that? And we're all using our cell phones now. And so there's been some pushback on that, but the university so far has not addressed it, or just the fact that you are using square footage in your house to store all of your work stuff that you were using in other ways before, right? Which apparently will be a tax deduction in this year.
We've also been able to use some of our CARES Act grants, not the student portion, but we've been able to use some of the institutional portion to offset some of those expenses that we've incurred. So some people bought extra monitors, some people just needed filing cabinet, whatever. We cleaned out all of our storage, so there was a lot in there. But then we've been using some of the grant.
For us, I don't think we explicitly got money for things like, locking file cabinets, but with travel being completely canceled, some of those funds were moved over. And so if people needed to purchase, basically we were told if you need to buy things, now is the time to do it because we're not using the travel funds and we're in a budgetary system where if it's not used, we lose it. So there was a lot of, if you need things for working from home, if you need things for the future at work, we've got the funds because we're not traveling.
I'm curious, Sean, are you at Otterbein back up and running yet? I know you got hit with a virus.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Yes, I'm going to say yes, but I think if you talk to somebody in IT, they'd probably be like, eh. But yeah, we're back. Thank God. It was really tough. So I don't know if the rest of you, I talked about this at the spring conference, but as we were being sent home for COVID-19 quarantine, we also got hit by a really very bad cyber attack. And so we were dealing with two problems all at once. But yeah, we rectified a lot of that probably within about 2 months. So I was able to get a lot of work done at home. And by the way, am I the only person who has required to go back to the office? I'm looking at everyone's living rooms and dining rooms, and I feel like I'm the only one who's
I'm at home
with a mask on.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I see somebody else that's in their office because they occasionally keep coming back in with the mask on.
Okay.
Can't see where it went, but.
Yeah, I'm typically actually working in my office, but today I'm working from home since I work on some big projects, and we were actually told to kind of split our time between work and at home, and just kind of allowing for more space for staff. But since I'm an office of one, I guess I can just take it however I want to. So yeah, kind of hard to split my staff in half. So.
Honestly, I was a little, concerned, a little scared to come back, but I'm actually glad. The ongoing grind of being at home every day, and you just feel like you roll out of bed onto your desk, and then you do your work, and then you leave, you eat, and there's just no separation. I'm just really happy to be back. Got my hand sanitizer, and I got my mask, and I'm closing my door, which you can do as an IR person. So mentally, I'm kind of happy about this.
Sean, does it feel really weird, like not to have a full campus, like just not seeing as many people around in the fall?
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. In some ways, it's a little sad because, you just really, the impact of this is really kind of hitting home. Like it was kind of emergency and just, we were all just reacting in the moment in the spring, but now it seems really real. Like this is what reality is right now. Because we really planned for this and here we are. Although I'm really proud of everybody on campus because as I walk around campus, everyone's wearing their masks and their facial coverings and they're doing it right, at least for now. I mean, there's always going to be drift, but there's a sense of like, yeah, we actually are all in this together and we're doing a good job with it. But I think just the whole idea, and everything's still online. I mean, like all of our meetings and everything are still online. So you're kind of in this like, do I need to be here? Or should I be doing this from home kind of thing? But I think for the most part, it just kind of is what it is, and it's kind of inspiring at the same time, a little depressing. And so it's a very strange mixture of emotions.
All right, well, I want to make sure that we talk about our homework. I know that we were all so excited to watch that video. So with us today, we have Dr. Knight, Dr. William Knight from Miami University, and he was very gracious and he gave me the pre-recording that we did, and I was able to upload it out to YouTube. So that video was entitled Presenting College Ranking Results to Institutional Leaders, and it included Dr. Knight, and then I'm going to butcher these names, Becky Brodigan from Colby College, John Chanu from Branook, I think that's how you say it, Branook College, Thomas McGinnis from Bates College, and Yasmin Yang from Rensselaer Polytech Institute. How bad did I get those, Bill?
Pretty much, it's Rensselaer and it's Baruch College. I had to ask about Baruch.
So just off the bat, if anybody has any questions, was everybody able to watch the video online? YouTube's, being a creator, a content creator on YouTube is a little new for me. So I was excited to do it for the first time, so thank you for letting me do that. Does anybody have any questions right off the bat? Go ahead.
Molly, I thought I was supposed to get a quarter for every time anybody looks at it.
Well, we're up to 77 views, so we're not trending just yet.
Nickel might be more appropriate. We did, by the way, invite the others to be available, but people were spoken for already for this time.
I had a question about the Academic Insight, I think that US News has, that database.
Yep.
Several people mentioned purchasing it, but that was a big part of their budget. How much is that?
$10,000 a year.
How much, I'm sorry?
$10,000 a year.
Wow, that's beyond my budget.
Yep.
And that's separate from if you get ranked in US News, then they have badges, and that's a whole separate piece and budget line that you would have to pay for if you wanted to promote whatever your rank was for each of the different sections as well. So
they also charge separately for any of the other rankings. Like if you have a law school and you want the law school rankings, that's a separate 10,000 or 15,000, depending on what the college is. It's a lot.
Yep.
The Insights kind of looks and feels a fair amount like Tableau or some of the BI tools, but when you're paying for it, you also can request basically just a big old set of spreadsheets. It's essentially everything that's in there, and having now made some Tableau dashboards with it, basically just use that. So the actual insights we're not really touching as much. One of the questions that came up in the chat when we did the, what was it, simulated virtual session at the AIR conference, which was an interesting thing. You know, what is the single most important thing to get across to the leadership about this? And I guess for me, it was, for most of the rankings, it's not how well we do, it's how well we do compared to how well others do. So our retention and graduation could go up, but if those typically around us in the rankings, it goes up even more for them, ours could go down. And that's kind of hard for people to get sometimes. And
yeah, I think that was one of the things I always struggled to explain, Bill, was that there was this idea, well, if we just get our retention rates up and if we just increase this and this and this, then obviously our score would go up to here. Well, no, because it's all relative compared to other schools. So you have to take into account how are the other schools going to change? And that's a hard concept, I think, for some of the higher ups to grasp, that it's not all done in a vacuum, it's all relative.
I guess that's one of my questions too. I wonder how many people look at the score and kind of emphasize that side of it, because you can show a commitment to continual improvement there, whereas some people are very bad about, we work on it, but then we stop, we work on it, we stop. And the score being there is something that I think might be underutilized at times.
Well, you know, I think kind of the best way to frame this, particularly with something like US News, is don't necessarily try to do this to improve your rankings. Do it because it's the right thing to do anyway. The largest component there is retention and graduation. I don't know any place in the world that's not trying to improve the retention and graduation anyway. So maybe the administrator or board that's not moved, that you need to spend a certain amount of money for, I don't know, tutoring or SI or institutional scholarship, might be moved to spend it knowing that that might help their rankings. That's a little perverse, but it might be the case. Another question we got in the virtual chat was if you're just kind of asked the question, you know, what do we do to improve our rankings? You know, what do you say? And my answer to that would be to try to draw the person out on, well, which rankings are you talking about? Because they don't emphasize the same things. Chances are reasonably good if you're fortunate that they're talking about US News, but not necessarily. And then try to get into a little more of the, well, these are what these things are weighted, and it's sometimes possible that taking actions to improve one might actually make it harder in another.
So, Bill, is that something that you're kind of constantly reminding institutional leadership of? Is that for things like rankings, you've got the methodology of your score against yourself, and then the methodology of your score against everybody else. It's kind of twofold.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we developed a, I'm going to call it a scorecard rather than a dashboard because it's basically an Excel sheet. And it shows for both our ranking and just the, you know, the raw metric, the raw number, kind of our history over the last few years, and then a guess about where we might be going in the future. But again, it's a guess because it's relative to others. And it's to try and reinforce that idea that there's both the, you know, our own number aspect that we can have should have some goals for, but then there's also the, you know, relative to others aspect that is just so much harder to control. So sure, I also think it's the kind of things that it's much more top of brain this time of year, for example, when US News is about to come out, than other times where there's, you know, nothing new is happening. And I also think it tends to get more attention if we've had some dramatic changes in one way or another than if we're, you know, one or two positions up or down. And typically there's not as much interest if that's the case. I think part of what makes this difficult is one of the entities that's typically very interested, that's difficult to work with, is the board. They're interested in the idea, but, you know, to be honest, they're typically not interested in really digging into the details, and may not be really interested in a complex response or the idea that we can't easily turn the ship for some of these things.
That brings up an interesting point, Bill, that I've noticed, having worked for 3 or 4 different presidents now, that interest changes from administration to administration. Some are more interested in the rankings and how to move them, and then others are less interested. Our current president, when he was in Tennessee, did some research, and I think it was even in the presentation, that people don't move. You know, the top ranked institutions stay top ranked. So like you said, it's more if you fall off the rankings or some big shifts. But, you know, if we're where we're at, we're going to stay where we're at. We might move up 3 or 4 spots, but, you know, I think he's less interested in the rankings than maybe President a couple ago.
There's also some research about, you know, are students really influenced by rankings? And, you know, what I've seen in the answer to that being typically at the extremely competitive, harder to get into type institutions, they tend to be more of an issue than more sort of, you know, moderately selective institutions. So, you know, certainly they're more of an issue with Miami than anywhere I've worked. So I think it depends on the institutional culture a little bit. And, you know, it's also the case that it's, other than in a general conversation, it's hard to get most folks kind of beyond the executive level interested because, you know, the deans, they're interested in their college. Well, most of it, it's not about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I have found that our marketing department is very interested in it, not so much leadership. And so that's a whole nother ball of wax trying to explain this stuff to folks who are very focused on the PR piece. And, you know, they'll want to meet with me every once in a while and say, how can we get these rankings up? What are you reporting? It's kind of like, it's not that I'm reporting something that needs to be approved. It's just who we are. And that's how the data factors into these algorithms. So, you know, on the other end of that, though, I think it's also, you know, you're trying to educate a whole community of people about this, and they all have a different reason why they're interested and a different level of understanding of data and how the data ends up factoring into this.
Yep, agreed.
I was a little curious, Bill, did you have any insights, or maybe anybody else, for those institutions that can't afford to pay for the full suite of the academic insights? maybe what are some strategies to analyze just the rankings without having the whole behind the scenes methodology?
The equity piece.
You can get a lot of the ranks and the raw numbers in what they provide on the website. And we typically get, what is it, like a month or something of free access to the website after it comes out. There are some things your rank within particular subcategories, and some of the things that the only way you can get it is with access to the insight. So that scorecard spreadsheet we did, some of the pieces of that we could not have completed if we didn't have that. So I think they always make the methodology as far as how it works available. They make kind of the top level data available, but there's a level within the weeds that eventually you can't get to without paying big bucks. I am interested to see what others have to say about that.
So
Hey, Bill.
At Ohio State, we have not had an academic insight subscription, and but we've had some savvy computer science students that know how to write scripts to scrape the web for some of the data that we need. So that's kind of the approach we've taken. And it works fine until something gets overwritten on the website and you realize you didn't have some page, and then it's gone forever unless you can find it from someone on campus that cared about it and downloaded it. But we are in the process of trying to get a subscription, just because we have so many questions about rankings that it's just unmanageable to try to answer them all. Plus all the information about graduate rankings and things, it really adds up to a lot of time that we spend on US News rankings. But I wanted to say the free subscription that you get when the rankings first come out, you can purchase it's called a Compass, and I think it's $40 a year, but essentially it extends that access for the whole year. And we use that, and it does provide some additional data that you can't get just from the public site. So it's a low budget alternative to get access to more data.
Good point. And I guess if I have anything to say good in terms of US News, it's that they, for the most part, are pretty transparent in how they do what they do. Not entirely, but more so than some of the other rankings where they only really kind of discuss in global terms how they come up with what they come up with. And it's really hard to do more than parrot back to people what they say on the websites, because we just can't go any deeper than that because they're not revealing it.
Yeah, I've been at least heartened with US News that they are kind of pulling back how much they're weighting that reputation piece of it, especially I think it was the education survey for master's degrees. Like they completely eliminated the reputation part of that survey recently. So I don't know how many other institutions take that into consideration as well when they're doing rankings, that reputation piece.
And that just seems, the most ineffable, the hardest to get your mind around is that reputation idea. There's a famous story that some school of something or other at Harvard was ranked, and they didn't even have that. But because it was Harvard, it was high. And that's an interesting idea if you think about what that suggests.
The social science and psychology behind that, yeah. So I want to make sure too that we kind of segue into a question that was pushed out onto the listserv earlier this week, just about reports overall in general. If anybody has a set calendar for, aggregating data, going up to institutional leadership. I can't remember was it Thomas? Was it Thomas Geoghegan? I'm sorry, who asked that question? Go back to my email real quick. Should have pulled it up.
Andrew with Zane State.
Oh, it was. Yes, Andrew at Zane State. Thank you, Andrea, or Laura, who said that. Jane Doe. But if anybody has any insights that they would like to talk about, I know at Miami, we have kind of a full year calendar that we make sure, we hit graduation rates are always in the spring kind of, but then they're also in the fall when we do retention. Those are, the two big ones that we do. US News rankings are always done in the fall when those are released. We don't really do kind of like an aggregated analysis on iPads. I think it's just because we're so busy trying to get iPads done every year. That's kind of on our list to do. Are there any others that people, regularly do every single year?
Hi, Molly. I'm actually in the middle of trying to get a calendar together because there's so many things we do with Delaware, US News, when we submit it, so people know we're busy submitting, and then when we have to do the release for marketing, as soon as the embargo list. So I'm trying to get all this calendar together so people know when it's expecting, because I keep getting questions all the time. When is this coming out? When do we have an updated 6-year graduation rate? And it's just so frustrating because some of it is just preliminary, and they want the preliminary, but then they want to know when it's the official. So I have to sort of make sure, I want to make sure they know when some of it is preliminary. Then we'll finally at the end of the semester have really more of the final. So I'm trying to put together a calendar like that for everything we do, because there's just so many different things. And we have a facts at a glance. When will that be updated? Institutional data report. And we've just been behind too with the latest year too. So I want to sort of set up a calendar when they should be expecting it by this month or something. And I think it'll really help. So we're still building all of this and updating our website, but it's just so much work with everything going on. It's just very hard to get everything up there. But it would be really handy, because just having that, then we have so many less questions, and they know where to go find the information they need, the official data on our website. And it's just, that's my plan. I'm trying to get this all done before I start getting hit with all the work that's coming here with census, reports next week and all these other things, US News, embargo list, and there's a lot that we have to put together. And just like you have, Bill, too, we have a scorecard too for US News, and we use Academic Insights. So we've been actually, the last year, it's been really a big thing. They've been wanting to see what are those metrics and the trends and what impacts the US News. So we've had to dig into every different new, one of those, the new methodologies, what's changed, and be able to explain everything to the senior leadership. And that's how we've also found that, we didn't have all of the credentials put in for our faculty by the time we do our snapshot in November. So we actually had more faculty, but that impacts your rankings. So we're actually educating people about the things that impact their rankings. So it helps us to improve the data quality as well. So I think that's what helps the most, is if they know that it impacts their ranking, then they're going to pay more attention to making sure the data is accurate and that we have the data ready for our snapshot dates. But we still have a lot to do with educating everybody about the data, and that takes time. So it's just a lot of work going on. And I feel like we're small, but I know for everybody else, you guys are sometimes just one person shop. So, and I have 5 wonderful people in my team, and it's still, we're just overwhelmed with work.
Bridget, I completely understand about the data quality. So one of my tricks that I like to do is I like to point out where it falls in the funding formula. So
yes.
Hey, I mean, maybe you don't care about this, but I mean, we are funded on it. So
right.
that drives a lot of accuracy at my campus.
That's a very good point, Kelly, because we've actually discovered that there were some things we were missing out on, some student credit hours, and that impacts our state subsidies. Like, well, nobody's putting this instructor in, you can't report. Well, that means less money. So all of a sudden it makes them realize, they got to pay attention. Yeah. So that's exactly what I found too, is lately, is those things that impact subsidy are very important. or being able to track, if people are underprepared students and things like that. How do you do it? You got to have some way of, being able to place them. And so making sure you have that information in the system. And so but still it's just getting it in the system to facilitate extracting that information too. And we want to automate things as much as possible. And that's sometimes very difficult. We've got scattered data, so many siloed areas. I don't know if other people have that as well. We don't have a data warehouse or a centralized system of storage. So how many others feel like it's pretty much different areas? So if you ask different people, you get different numbers. So it's frustrating. So how can we get over that sometimes is the hard part.
Ditto.
Yeah, I think what I struggle with is, you mentioned, Bridget, you mentioned the automation piece. I've been really trying to push like dashboards and things out there. And there's some people who just eat that up through like a feeding tube. And then there's others who are like, absolutely not. I want the written paper thing that you always put out. And you're like, okay, so now I've just added to my work as opposed to being able to like automate things and get things off my plate. Now I'm doing two things. And so I struggle with that too. And so I don't mean to change the subject, but if anybody out there wants to add that to the mix of things we're talking about, I'd love to hear how you address that on your campus.
Yeah, and actually we were just trying to do something where we're putting out some Tableau dashboards, and I think you can actually extract, like for facts at a glance, and I believe we can extract the PDF that we usually put together from the data that we generate for the Tableau. So if we can do both, then that's sort of nice, because then we're going to put out the PDF. So we're going to have everything, the PDF version, and then we want to have a Tableau or a Power BI. We have a lot of things in Argos as well for internal use. Because they can disaggregate by Pell, URM. There's so many things that allow them with our Argos dashboard to drill down to the department level, college level, and then they can track everything. So we have different types of dashboards for different purposes and different users. Yeah, so we have to make sure we have everything that everybody wants. And so often the website's been the last thing, but they really love those Tableau, Power BI dashboards, Senior leaders like to have access to things that are very easy for them to access. Yeah, I found. Yeah, but internal people want to have more of the raw data, and then they want to manipulate it on their own. So you got the combination. You have to make everybody happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
giving raw data always makes me really nervous, just in general, because there's so many ways to interpret the data, and like. At Miami, we're really trying to push the self-service dashboards now.
Yeah.
But with what's going on in the country, we've seen a big uptick in everybody wanting to see race and ethnicity pushed out onto all the dashboards. That's such a, I don't want to say a hot topic, but a hot button that everybody wants to focus on that, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So now we're going back to having to rebuild a lot of those dashboards and add that feature in.
Right, and that's why I like to keep the Argos, because I could just pull that field into the SQL, and then it's just right there, and they can drag and drop it into an OLAP cube. So it's minimal work for me by doing it that way. But yeah, if you have the other fancier dashboards like Tableau or Power BI, then you have to actually add that in, an extra filter. So it's a little bit more work to add those in, I think. So you got to balance those, yeah. And it's just, we're juggling, trying to keep up with everything. But yeah, also giving them raw data is an issue, because then they pull it, those dashboards internally, and then they'll manipulate it, and then they spit out a new report, and then they say, well, this came from an IR, and they'll make mistakes, and it's like, wait a minute, we provide that final report. But it's so, you got to sort of protect yourselves too. Like now I have official ones that come through our office. It's got our own logo. This came directly from us. We checked it, triple checked it, That's the thing too. With the internal report, everybody starts creating their own version of a report, and then you have inconsistencies too. So
we've developed a series of different color-coded logos for our analytics and decision support platform so that they can tell at a glance whether it's been validated, because we do have other units that are developing their own dashboards, and so they're required to work under either a red or a yellow logo until we validate and publish it widely. If it's a useful dashboard, we'll spend the time to validate it and publish it widely. But until then, there's a visual reminder to everyone that it is, you know, unvalidated data that they're looking at.
Laura, do you then find yourself in a constant, like, now I have to validate everybody else's reports in that self-service?
So this is brand new, like literally during the COVID period. So we haven't really run into that because right now our Explorer community is super busy on fall planning and other things. So it's like, it's a process we've just put into place, but we haven't actually, the rubber hasn't met the road yet on how that's going to be handled.
Yeah.
We're worried about workload.
Yeah.
But we're trying to put together a team. So we have a viewer community that have viewer licenses for our Tableau. And then we also have an Explorer community, which are the ones that have authoring rights. And so we're trying to kind of, we're hoping we can crowdsource this and put together like a validation committee that if there's a platform that, if there's a dashboard that's been developed not by IR, then we can have several people that have Explorer creator licenses look at those and validate them so it doesn't all fall on our staff. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Lorraine. I really appreciate your input there.
Just to speak to that, at my previous location, I was a grant writer, and so we would want data specific to every grant opportunity, which is of course never the same. So they built us, our AIR office had built us a Power BI data model for us to pull and drag and drop and figure that out. But anything we did, we would submit back to the AIR office and they would verify it. And I think in Power BI, there's an official verified check they could use. So, I mean, that did work for us then, but I think the problem was not everybody had the know-how. Like, I was the one who knew how to do it. So when I left, I'm not sure that data model got upkept in any way.
All right, everybody. I just want to make sure that I make just a few announcements here before we finish our coffee hour. We will be sending out an official notice, but you can probably guess we will not be meeting in person in October. We are going to be doing a virtual meeting. So we thank Columbus State for volunteering to be a location, but just unfortunately with COVID and everything, that's just not going to be possible. So we are going to do a virtual meeting similar to this. We hope to have a call out for proposals sometime here in the next 2 months. And we hope to still have our virtual conference in October. We would like to have a more robust agenda than what we did in the spring. So hopefully we can have some tracks where people can select, you know, from two different presentations at the same time, rather than just, you know, one meeting right after the other that everybody has to go to the same thing. So we're trying to, you know, space out the curriculum a little bit and do some different options. So if you have any ideas or if you'd like to volunteer to be on that planning committee, you can definitely reach out to the listserv. Second thing is it's going to be free. We're not going to have any cost for that. And I think we are also going to forego dues for the next year. For various reasons, we understand everybody's kind of in a budget crisis due to COVID. A lot of people's professional development has just been cut. So we're not going to have dues, but alternatively, if we do meet in spring of 2021, we will have a reduced conference fee if we meet face-to-face at that time. Jay Johnson, she will have to pay. She is adorable. Other than that, we've got some other things planned for the rest of the year. We're going to be doing voting, will be virtual as well for our conference. So think about nominations if you'd like to be on the committee. We've been meeting virtually even before COVID. So that's something that we're just kind of used to doing, talking through email and sharing. Last thing I want to do is make sure I'm going to take a picture pull up your coffee cups. I want to see the fancy coffee cups. Anybody have any good ones? Let me take a picture. You guys are so cute. Jay Johnson's gone. Shannon, what's on your coffee cup? It looks like a picture. Uta's got some, are those corgis?
Someone else. We both have, oh, you have, were those the Starbucks? Or someone gave me this. You have the dogs and I have the cats. I think someone gave this to me from a Starbucks mug, but it's all the cats. Yeah.
Actually, mine is a design for my daughter, so.
Oh.
Aww. Jay, your Ohio State cup is just kind of like floating.
Yeah, he's just coffee, nothing else.
Yeah.
It says Ohio against the world.
Yes.
It's a show. Yeah.
Is anybody drinking tea? I didn't want to discriminate against tea drinkers in our notice.
I'm sorry, did you not read my mug? Coffee. Coffee before talkie.
Yes.
Tea.
Absolutely.
Molly, actually, Anna decided last week she was going to try to break her caffeine habit and stop drinking coffee. And she made it 2 days until her shoulders were all stiff. And she learned that it has, you know, that some of the benefit in I guess, some inflammation and stuff like that. So she is having a little bit now again each morning.
A little bit of withdrawal.
Withdrawal, yeah.
The one benefit, we don't have to worry about coffee breath. Because I was like, oh, I need to go brush my teeth, but we're okay. We're wearing masks. Yeah.
I'll just quickly second what Molly said about nominations. You know, if you have any interest in helping us to plan and move this forward, this is quite a rewarding group to be a part of, both for just the networking, but also for the educational aspect of it. And so I believe we'll have one position open in the 2-year public, one position open in the 4-year public, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2 positions for the 4-year private. So just to thank everyone who's been serving, and it's not a lot of commitment. You basically just help us make decisions. And we'd love to have anybody new or interested, just reach out and ask questions, and we'd be happy to tell you what else it involves. But be thinking about nominations for the fall.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to self-nominate either. I mean, especially since we're not meeting in person, a lot of times we have conversations at the meetings where, you know, people talk to each other and say, would you be interested? I could nominate you. And being virtual, that's a little less likely to happen. So self-nominate, reach out, ask us questions. We're always happy to answer them.
All right, one final thank you for Dr. Knight for being our, Code facto guest speaker. And thanks everybody for coming this morning. I hope you enjoyed your free coffee.
Thanks for organizing, Molly.
You're welcome. We'll see everybody in October.
Hey, everyone. Thanks.
Carol.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.